Hi, welcome back to Dirty Socks. It's Caleb DeWald, your host, and I'm here with Betty. Happy to be here. All right. When we last left off, we were talking about the last set of warrants and how Thew was going into court and putting on a GPS monitor around his ankle, right? Right. Well, now it's time to tell the part of the story where it really affected everyone else that no one thought about. And this is the part of the judicial system at this point that is unseen by most. So here we go. November 1st, 2023, Thew goes to court, and to finally get all this stuff to stop, these accusations and all this stuff, all the warrants, everything, being arrested on Fridays, in jail over the weekend, all that stuff, with no prior anything, no prior contact, no prior history, no prior anything. All of a sudden, this stuff is becoming more and more. Goes into court. He brings his family members, and he brings his bail bondsman. Brings his bail bondsman in there, and they're sitting there in court, and the judge looks up, and they want to raise the bail. And she's like, what the hell for? He's got to bail out. He's got to get out of here. Why? So Thew's attorney says, listen, judge, hey. He didn't really say that. He did say, Your Honor, we are willing to put on a GPS monitor to prove that this isn't happening. Because at this point, we feel like it's targeting, and he's being unfairly accused of this stuff. So she says, fine. So instead of raising bail, it was like an even push. Instead of raising bail and going through all that nonsense where it wasn't going to mean anything to the court or anybody anyway, Thew agreed to wear the ankle bracelet. Right. Now he could be monitored for everything. But the judge at that point threw in a twist and put him on house arrest also. But for no reason. So here we are. Thew is now doing anything he can to stop being accused of this stuff. Because it's absurd at this point. And we've gone through most of it. And it just looks like it's crazy. It's a lot, yeah, for a lack of a better term. So Thew puts the ankle bracelet on. The judge puts him on house arrest for whatever reason. No conviction, no crime, no nothing. He volunteered for the ankle bracelet, and the judge threw in house arrest. So he has to stay home. So he had to stay home. She then goes ahead and carves out work release for him, 7 to 7. He's allowed to leave the house to go to work only. Work back, her exact words, according to Thew. So he goes to work, his first job. Guess where his first job lands? Where? Building a house for a Northington police officer. Really? So here he is on surveillance anyway. True. What the heck does he need the GPS for if the police officer is there watching it anyway? Very true. That being said, this is all because of that arrest that goes back to Danny McDonald. That needs to be noted for future reference coming up in either later this episode or the next one. Okay. Anyway, there's no history of contact between Thew and Gabby at all since the divorce up until all of the arrests. And then after that, nothing more. There is no line of communication or violence or anything like that. Yeah. Yet they pose that in the warrants, that it's domestic violence, this, that, the third. And it becomes crazy. Like they're trying to build it more and more. So under this house arrest, as he sits there, November 2nd, from there on in, he's only allowed to go to work, home, work, home. Under this house arrest, it begins the grueling part of all of this. Thew has to sit there and can't do anything himself. Okay, right? So house arrest is really just a punishment for everyone else. True, it really is. Thew's parents had to suffer. Thew's friends had to suffer. And most importantly, Thew's son had to suffer. Yeah. You imagine having to sit there. Imagine this picture. You're Thew. You're sitting there, and your son says, let's go to the park. And you can't go. And you can't go. Yeah. And you can't go. Pretty terrible. And that's just the tip of the iceberg because it gets worse from there. The GPS and the house arrest does not affect the offender as much as it does everyone else. Everyone else had to be there on call for anything that might have been needed. And this is without any kind of conviction. No conviction, no crime, no nothing. There still isn't anything. And yet Thew has to go through all of this. So Gabby's probably sitting there, living her life, loving it, not worried about what her ex-stepson had to go through. or thinking about anything like that, which is kind of sad in a way. Very sad. So we go through that, and Thew just does it, churns through it, and he's watching all of his friends, family, and son help, and just, I don't even know how to describe what Thew has described to me, but it's an agitation, because he can watch everybody else get frustrated with this situation, which was unintended and unnecessary. Because at the end of this, none of this was necessary. So all these people did, the NPD, Gabby, and everyone else, was screw up people's lives that they never thought about. That should be illegal, as far as I'm concerned, but I'm just a guy reporting all of this. It negatively impacted his son so much that his son was depressed and went through the grade year of that year terribly. And there were meetings that were called, and guess who couldn't go? Thew. Yeah, because he couldn't leave the house. Yeah. So Thew had to do these things remotely, which again is fine for Thew. He's still there, but he can't get there to see people in person, right? His son's mother begins to become upset. And from all the research I've done, I believe that there was correspondence between Gabby and Thew's son's mother. Really? Yes. Because there was an incident with another police department in which the town she lives in created a problem. She lives in a town just west of where Thew lives. And that police department, which will remain nameless, involved themselves in a domestic dispute and then turned around and told Thew they can't get involved in domestic disputes. Yet they told Thew's son's mother and son that he should stay away from his father for a while. Really? Yes. And then told Thew they can't get involved. So now, knowing that Thew can't go get him, that's a whole story, which we'll get into in a few minutes, because the punishment did not fit any crime. Right. Thew had to put up with a lot of nonsense, a lot of crap, and everybody around Thew had to put up with it more than Thew did. This is how bad the judicial system is in all this also. Not only were they signing warrants for these corrupt police officers, they're putting this conviction on Thew, which wasn't deserved. And at the end, it will show it, because they had to eat crow and try and save face. So, while Thew is making the most of this, his son is struggling, school's failing, it's not going as well as it could, and Thew is doing everything he can. That police department that in the town his mother lives in screwed things up so badly, and there's recordings of it based on Thew calling and asking about what was going on. So they say that it's probably better if he stays with the mother that's getting involved in domestic disturbances or domestic affairs. Yeah. And then says to Thew that they can't do anything about it. Then you can't have an opinion, right? You can't say it's better if he does and then say you can't get involved. So that Easter, Thew's son is allowed to go to his parents' house to see his parents or his son's grandparents, his aunts and uncles, and his cousins. But he's not allowed to come and see Thew. Why? I don't know. That's why I believe there was correspondence. In reading all of this and listening to Thew, now it's only Thew that I'm listening to. I don't have the other side of the story. Right? So I want to make that clear. But listening to Thew, the only thing I can figure is that Gabby was corresponding with Thew's son's mother. And that's how this happened. That's how she knew to take him. That's how she knew that that Thew couldn't go and do anything about it. He couldn't leave the house. Right, he's on house arrest. Couldn't go get him. So he was stuck. So Thew struggled along with all his friends, all his family, right there by his side. Thankfully, they put up with that crap. And they did, according to you, they did a wonderful job being there for him. And if it wasn't for them, he doesn't know how he would have been. All right. Along comes April 5th, the next court date. After all that. Okay? This is where the bans are lifted. So, work release is gone. Okay. House arrest is gone. So it was what? That was 6 months. Right? 6 months of house arrest. For no reason. Zero reason that Thew had to be on house arrest at all. And then they lift it all, and he's free to go, though he must maintain the GPS. So Thu's like, fine, I'm all right with that. Peace out, Sprouts. And they give him 3 plea bargains. One is felony no jail. Another one is misdemeanors, 4 misdemeanors, 4 months in jail and probation. And the other one is court or trial. Or trial, okay? And so Thew had said from day one that he didn't do this. And he's not taking a felony, and he's not going to jail. He didn't do anything. He's not doing it. And so he stood by his guns. Prosecution and defense go back and forth for the next few months. Finally, the decision day comes. Thew stands in front of the judge and says, I want to go to trial. Ow. The judge looked at him like he had 4 heads and said, really? He's like, yes, I want to go to trial. He knew he didn't do it, and he knew the state had nothing to prove that would set him. He would have ended up with any one of those same things that they had already set. Okay, worst case scenario. But he also could have come out of it scot-free, right? Huh? So why take a plea you don't deserve when you have a 50-50 shot of getting off scot-free? Right. Why sucker yourself into that corner? Why paint yourself into a corner? Basically, right? So Thew sets ready for trial. Getting ready for trial, this means you're putting the decision in the hands of your peers. It's no longer up to the state, the judge, or anybody like that. Yeah, it's a bunch of, it's look at that people. 6 idiots in a box is what they call it in law school, I believe. And so you have to know who you're getting on what day. Luckily, Thew had a wonderful attorney who was fantastic at what he did and knew what he was doing. So besides that, Thew knew that he was putting up to 3 juveniles on the stand, which nobody ever wants to see. Nobody ever wants to see that happen. Right? So there's up to 3 of them. And he's forcing Gabby to make the decision of whether or not she's going to put her daughter on the stand to back up what she said. Right? Yeah. So there was a lot going on in all of this. And Thew knew it. And Thew was like, I know I didn't do this, and I know they have to do this stuff. So I'm going to go for this. And it was a calculated decision. And he's like, no, she has to decide whether or not her daughter goes on the stand, which would put Gabby in a very precarious position. If she does, her daughter might look like a liar, which she was. Yeah. If she doesn't, she made up the whole story, and the trial gets thrown out. So it was very likely that one of those 2 things were going to happen. Okay? No parent puts their child on the stand. The other thing is, he would be paying much more. He would have paid much more money to go to trial. So he knew it was a long shot, but knew that Gabby hadn't shown up in court for anything. She had a victim's advocate the entire time because she was embarrassed due to her lying under oath and making all those false statements. She didn't want to show her face in court in case they ever called her upon anything, which they probably would have. Okay? She knew she lied, and she didn't want to be on the stand. She didn't. The first trial appearance, it was like October 10th. I don't have those notes in front of me, but I believe it was in the middle of October. And Thew went there, and his attorney comes out and says, hey, you're still in the pretrial phase. And Thew was like, what? He said the judge read the case and was furious at the prosecution. He said he asked where the crime was and told him to go back and make something work. And so they did. And they came back with another plea, a plea that should have been set first. A plea that never should have been set in the first place anyway, because none of this ever happened. But a plea that should have been set first. And they said 4 misdemeanors, no jail time, and probation. And the probation is even subject to how well he does or whatever. So they were like, where did this come from? So Thew was like, I can go to trial and push this even farther and probably win. Because Gabby was not going to put her daughter on the stand, nor was she going to allow the other 2 juveniles to take the stand. It was freaking out. And she had to be alerted of everything that the state did, and she had to okay it. So when this was given, she okayed it. Okay. So she knew she was lying, she knew she was wrong, and she knew she was getting out easy. So, in response to that, she writes a nasty letter that Thew does not want me to read on this podcast. I tried to get him to do it because I wanted it read. He would not let me read it. It is awful. It's a horrible thing to say about anybody, especially when you are, in fact, the liar, right? So November 6th comes. They accepted the deal of the 4 misdemeanors. They cut off the ankle bracelet and the GPS monitors, and we've moved on to it since. Wow. And that's how we got here. And that's what happened with all that stuff. The state had no evidence to prove Thew wrong. The Thew had little bits that the attorneys were afraid of, maybe getting bit by. But all in all, they had nothing substantial to prove that Thew did any of this. All right. See, that's right. And so here we are, and we went through all this, through all the documents, all the cases, all the courts. None of it made sense. None of it made sense to the state. And it finally, a judge with half a brain that wanted to save some face for the state had the state come up with a plea that worked. And it just says to you that here in this state, they can manipulate anything to make it work. Yeah, you get what I mean? So, Thew got off what seemed to be a slap on the wrist. But he got off with a slap on the wrist for not doing anything right in the first place. So he got more than he should have. It's not a slap on the wrist. It's still more than he should have. But he saved 3 juveniles from taking a stand, and he saved his ex-wife from having to make that decision, who put him in this position in the first place. So he actually made the right decision for everyone involved. Okay? So whatever you've heard or whatever you think, take it for what it is. Now, what the real problem here lies in, and we're going to get into next episode, is the Barbie Joan. Barbie Joan knew things before she should have. She said things to Thew's friends before she should have, then erased it, knowing she wasn't supposed to say that stuff, which means there definitely is collusion in this case. Okay. And it's just a matter of how far it goes. And we'll figure that out next episode. So, Betty, thanks for joining me. Anytime. And, hope you're well, and we'll see you next episode. Yeah. All right, everybody, remember, do your laundry, clean your socks, and join us next time. All right? Talk to you later.